Hello, and I have gone through your resume,
Okay,
but I just wanted to hear, could you please brief yourself for the
sure,
current project and where you are working?
sure. Thank you for asking. Good morning. Sorry, good afternoon. My name is Amarjit. I am having 7+ years, 7.4 years of experience. So currently, I'm working for the Java development. So technology which I use like backend as a Java, a Spring Boot microservice, a Spring Cloud component like Histrix, Eureka Service Registry, and ribbons and all. And some of the exposures I have in front end as Angular 9. Also I have a good experience in AWS cloud services. So most of the services I work while we are using for development and deployment and monitor the application like EC2 instance, Elastic Bean Stack, Lambda expressions and SNS, SMS, SES, SQS, and then CloudWatch and all. So DevOps also I worked on some of the DevOps tools while we used for the development like Apache Maven, Jenkins, Jira, GitHub, ELK, Splunks and all. And coming for the database, I have also good experience in database like Mongo, Oracle, SQLs and all. So mostly these all are the technology stack which I have. Coming for domain, I have also worked on different domain like banking, telecom, e-commerce, health insurance. So currently I'm working for this health insurance project where we need to manage this portal where customers will come and take whatever the insurance he wants, so either term, life, car, others and all. So once he will take, then order will be created. After that we will process the order based on the Spring Boot microservices architecture. So we need to capture the order through the communications of messaging queue like Kafka and all. And after that we will check what type of slots are there for the particular order. According to that we need to operate and calculate the price so that customer will get the notifications for the particular insurance will have this type of payments. And once while he will try to payment that, then in that time also will have some of the pop-up, so that there is a promo operation microservice will call in between, and they will get some offers and all, so that if he users want, he can add the offers then do the payment. Once payment will be completed, then notification will go for the notification microservices, and they will send this email alert confirmations through WhatsApp message or email. So that type of features we are implementing internally based on the microservice communication, which will be communicate from one to other microservices. So yeah, so my role and responsibility here, we are following agile. So based on the agile we need to work on the project. So whatever the sprint task will be defined in that, we'll have a Jira. That Jira we need to complete. So my mostly we are developing our API communications which will be communicate to other microservices one to others, or also we'll have a microservice development or some customization which is required for already implemented microservices. So that type of work I am doing. Apart from that, while we develop any application, that will go for the different scenarios of different microservices deployment of production, different stages. So once it will go for the production, before that we'll have a call, so that we have to set up the call while we pre-deployment of production. So there we need to check all the configurations which is related for the productions, and all the changes of validations, logs, and others changes which is required, so that we what are the input output requested, that we have to validate. Once deployments and all will completed, then after that also we have a check this confirmations and all. If suppose if anything will be there, then we'll do the hotfix deployments and all immediately, like but that will be happen rarely, so that we can analyze the log and then see. So multiple tools and trackings also we use while we deploying and all. So that type of work I'm doing on daily basis. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Amarjit, for briefing about it. So, since you are part of the microservices, so have you be part of designing a microservice architecture?
Yeah, yeah, we have also designed some of the microservices from the starting. So yes.
What is the few points. Can you recall and tell me what is needed to design the microservice architecture?
Yeah, first is first whatever the requirement gathering we have to collect on call, so that what type of requirement customer need, from which module, either this is a new module or maybe existing module. If existing module we need to migrate, or new module we need to customize or create a new development. So according to the changes, like what type of required features is there, through that we need to analyze what are the technology and all we will use. Suppose we have also designed one module like a promo operation, which I have discussed. Like once users will come in our portal, so they will do some payment, so or initiate the order and do the payment. Once you will do the payment, then that in that time we will show the one pop-up where users can get a offers, like a 2 day offer, what type of offer is there and which is applicable for the customer of amount, so whatever the amount he has selected. So we need like some of the pages, UI pages, which will be reflect while doing the payment. So once users will payment, then there is a some pop-up, you have this type of offer, if you want you can redeem the offer, like that. So how we will do, we have some like a while we need to develop a microservice, we need to capture the order detail. So how we will capture, so first of all, input parameters will be captured through the real-time messaging queue, that is Kafka. So there we have to capture this order ID, and once order ID and according to the payment, so that payment microservice details also will be there in this Kafka cluster. So we have to call this payment ID, payment amount. If users is applicable for the 2 day offer, we have to call this database. Customer is trying to initiate this type of payment and how much offers is applicable for this customer for the 2 day offer. So based on that, top 5, top 3 applicables offers we will show up to the customer on the that particular page, so that you customer can select any type of offer. Once you will select, then there will be some discounts or vouchers which will be at the wallet amount, and that will be proceed. So that type of features also I implemented. And some of the microservice like order, while we initiated the order, so what type of pre-requested we have to send to the customer nearby, which zone is trying to create a order, so that features we also enable. So mostly architectures, like we can say, like while we created backend applications, we'll have a like a backend uh, like once the request will come from the Angular, that is UI page, where in our application in Angular they are using. So the Angular which request will come, then we need to capture this request, either come that will request will go for the API gateway. That API gateway, either we have a Joule, so that Joule will redirect like what type of request and which microservice need to be registered, which microservice need to be sent. So we have a Eureka service registry there, they will know like this request is coming for this order is related service. So order related service will go for the order Eureka service registry, and service registry will send it to the particular microservices. So that microservices will have a controller, so based on that, like fetch the detail for the customer. So that fetch details will have a get call or something, so that go for the particular microservice in controller class. Controller class will go for the business, and then we'll fetch the details from the database, and according to that we will operate, and after that we'll show this page to the UI page again.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, what is the gateway you're using?
sorry.
What you said, some gateway, API gateway will be used, right?
Yeah,
What
Joule
is
we
it?
used API gateway.
Okay. How do you implement Zool?
Yeah, so while we implement a Joule, suppose we created a microservices, in that we need a Spring Cloud features. So that as Spring Cloud features we have a Joule, so that multiple things are there. So Joule, first we have to add the dependency of in particular microservices, which need to be communicated from the any of UI. So added the dependency of Joule in pom.xml, and after that we retain a configuration class in application.yaml property, like Joule configurations, and where that will be redirected what are the service registry, if request will come from any client, then this is the unique service registry, so that service registry will go for the Eureka service registry, that we have to define in the YAML property file.
Okay. So how do you so how does server or the Angular knows which is the API gateway?
Server Angular knows. We have a like a cross origin will be there. So that cross while we created any microservices, in all microservice will have a controller. So controller will have a cross origin which need to be communicated from our Angular UI to backend applications. So there we have to mention the name and also Angular will yeah, so that name, and Angular also will have a like that one rest services, in Angular also will have a rest call. So in that rest call they have to mention, like they will ask like this type of page, which controller you want to populate. So they will get some idea or some information for our backend applications controller details, and according to that UI page will be implemented all those things.
Okay. So when it comes to microservices, as you
Yeah.
know, this is a stateless.
Yes.
Okay. But a customer want to maintain a session. How
Hmm.
do you approach in
Can you repeat
microservices?
once again?
So microservices are stateless.
Correct.
Okay, correct.
Hmm.
But how do you approach session in microservices?
How do we approach the session in microservice, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah.
First of all, can we implement a session in microservices?
Yeah, we can implement the session in microservices. So mostly we'll have a like two based sessions will be there, are client based browser sessions and server based sessions. So if you'll go for database property, the automatically that will be created, or Redis caches will be created, caches and session also. In respective of what type of sessions you want to capture, either database communications or security implementation or transaction.
No, you tell me which is better.
Okay, better. Mhm. Better, I think sessions we have to capture two ways. Better performance by security ways. We have a JWT token. There we can capture the sessions. Once users will logged in with the credentials, then we have to activate the session. Otherwise, the users need to be communicated from business logic to the database layer. That type of operations will have a transactions. So once transactions will be created, in that time we can create a session. So that session will check either our transaction management is happening proper or not, so that we have a multiple commit rollback. So the sessions need to be captured and see this information.
How do you know the session is active?
Yeah.
JWT, I agree. How do you know the session is active?
Yes.
So user wants to log off. I mean,
Hmm.
it should get automatically inactive after 20 minutes.
Correct.
How do you set it?
Active and inactive. Yeah. So there is a session activations. Okay. Uh, Session inactive active. Yeah.
Can, no problem. Have you worked on Saga pattern?
Yeah. Saga patterns I use for the transaction management orchestration.
Hmm? What is it?
Saga, like we have a multiple microservices which need to be communicated. So some of the microservice will have a business logic that need to be store the information in our transaction detail in our database. So suppose we have a multiple microservice dependent in each others, then only we have a do the final transaction commit. So that cases we have a B C D microservice. If a microservice has been create a order and order has been successfully initiated, so the transaction has been committed for the A microservice, that is called sub transaction. B microservice will do the payment, so that payment has been calculated and payment also has been done. So the B microservice the transactions has been completed, that is called T2 subs transactions. And after that, if delivery person or maybe some checkout microservice will check out these things, and then they will generate a receipt. So while generating a receipt, maybe that issues or maybe some of the issue was there in the particular microservices, and that is not happen properly. So that how can users or maybe customers will get know, like they have done the transaction, and he has make successfully payment, and his insurance has been updated or taken based on this reference ID or something policy number. So in that cases, our Saga patterns we have to implement it, once this notification server or any microservices is failed, then our all the sub transaction which has been committed, and if our any microservices has failed, then we need to revert this transaction status, so that whatever the that was not a final commit, that is a temporary commit was there in sub transactions, so that will be rolled back, and then again customer will try or maybe with the new request and all. So that cases we need to handle Saga with a different scenarios here.
Okay. So all whatever you said, all three microservices will be in a single transaction or multiple transactions?
No, no, in a single transactions will be there, that will have us create a sub transaction. If transaction is not committed final commit, then that will be rolled back.
Okay. Then I have one microservice, three microservices consider.
Yeah.
One microservice is kind of an optional. Even if I get the response or even if I don't get the response, I can proceed further.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What if the third microservices fail?
Okay.
How do you roll back?
Yeah, if the third microservices has failed, then third microservice will check the conditions, like if conditions has been failed of the third microservices, then they will call the second B and A microservice also.
Okay. So the caller, he
Yeah.
has to hit all three microservices in the subsequent request.
Yes.
Don't we have any other way?
Yeah, we have two ways while we implement the Saga. As other way is Saga orchestration and Saga choreography. These two way we can handle, like orchestration and choreography.
Okay. Have you worked on Java 8 or Java 11?
Mostly I use Java 8, 7, 8. 11s
Okay.
also use some of the features, but not implemented.
I want to delete a string from a list
Okay.
without using another list. Is it possible?
We have a multiple list in a string, right? And you
No,
want to
multiple
delete
strings
a
in a
string
list.
without using another list.
Yes. I mean, without assigning to another list.
Okay, yeah, it's possible.
Is it possible?
Hmm.
I'm asking you, is it possible?
Sorry.
Is it possible?
Yeah, it's possible.
What is that? How do you handle it?
You want to delete a string without any other list. Hmm. Delete. Okay. So that delete. Okay, sure. So by using lambda stream API, we'll have a multiple methods are there. So like list dot stream dot filters. In that filters we have to put the conditions, and then we have a map which will be process the data, and after that we'll collect the undeleted data based on the collectors by using two lists. So here in this uh, stream API, here filters map,
Yeah, that is the way to process, but where is the part of deletion?
Yeah, deletions, we have a method is there, inbuilt method through that. Delete by delete ID, delete based on delete based on delete employee, delete list to use the deletion. uh, Delete, we can use inbuilt method for the deletion, that is some predicate,
What is that predicate?
not predicate, sorry, some method. I'll check. I'm not sure that, but I think there is some deletion method is there. Through that we have to delete particular
Okay.
delete the employee detail. Okay.
So you said you worked on AWS, right? AWS Cloud.
Yeah,
What is the difference between S3 and EC2?
S3 is a storage, like where we can store the static type of data in that. But EC2 instance is a way where we can create the uh, configurations of servers. There we can deploy our applications, add this database and all. So this is the virtual server will be provided by the AWS services, and we can uh, install any of the software which is required, and then we can deploy our applications.
Okay. What are the different states in EC2?
Different state in EC2 instance.
Mm-hmm.
A state, okay. Different in state of EC2 instance. A state in terms of while we
For
creating.
example, do you know the servlet states, right? In the same way.
Yeah, okay, okay, yeah, that one, yeah. Yeah, so while we created EC2 instance, in that cases, first we have to select VM configuration, like what type of operating systems you want. So that initializations will be defined, and once you click on this configurations, then there will be some virtual machine has been created based on the operating system, either Linux or Windows. And then we need a configuration of users based on the role, either IAM users and all we have to define. And then second, in that what type of uh, services you want to add in that, like DynamoDB and others, where we can create applications and then deploy it.
Okay. So, yeah, we can create, stop, and terminate, whatever.
Yes,
We can do the EC2 instance and AWS. It will also be scalable. So, when you stop or terminate the instance,
yes.
so what is the difference? How it works?
Yeah, so once you stop, then particular instance will be like close for particular time once, and terminate will be your application is in between, and that will be terminated by maybe you close the AWS console by mistake, or maybe some power has gone, or maybe some memory has been out of something happened, or you have not mentioned some memory handle, or something load balancers and all. In that cases, that will be your applications or maybe servers will be terminated, and stops will be done by manually by the users. If anything is want to deploy, or any some changes or anything is required, then we can stop, but terminations will be happen automatically due to some uncertainty and all.
Okay. So you worked on Kafka, right?
Kafka, yeah.
Yes. So can you tell me why Kafka? Why not other?
Why not?
Why not RabbitMQ?
Yeah, if you will compare RabbitMQ and Kafka, we have multiple difference are there. Like RabbitMQ, Kafka will work on like async communications with fastest manner compared to RabbitMQ. Kafka will work as an offline online handler. Suppose if you have a multiple microservices which has been cluster has defined and particular microservices has down or something happen, then once this microservices fall all, then there will be some multiple retry options will be there so that they can consume the data. So no need to check either Kafka is on or off right now or working or not. So that cases and for this scalability and all we'll seek with this RabbitMQ and Kafka we have a fastest way and RabbitMQ will have to one of the language scriptings that need to be followed, but here Kafka we don't need a direct, you can install the Kafka and Zookeepers, through that we can handle the request. And Kafka easily we can have a monitors template or tools is there, through that we like a Kafka tools, real tools and all, there we can analyze the real-time analysis data and accept all the JSONs and all. So
So how does the Kafka cluster works?
Kafka,
Cluster.
yeah, Kafka cluster, while we requested like we have order services, so that order service while created, then all respective microservice need to be communicated. So simultaneously we can't process the communication from order to respective microservice. So what we have to do, like Kafka configuration we have to do. So Kafka configuration in order services we have to mention the Kafka details and create a consumer sorry producer, so that order microservice, once order has been generated, then while we install the Kafka, so that Kafka clusters will be created. Cluster is nothing but where we can store the data, so that data will have a zookeepers that they can monitor or track the all the topics based on the topic name, create like partitions, create offsets and all based on the topic, and that will be processed to the respective microservices if any microservice request is coming from the consumer side. So this order microservices has generated the order ID and they has produced to the Kafka cluster. So that Kafka cluster will get these details, and respective microservice will have a consumer class which need to be consumed. So they need to check like order microservices has generated this order, like insurance customer initiated insurance, that is the topic name, so that whatever the initiations happen by the customer, that topic details will be there in the cluster. So the cluster is a communicator way where third party like other microservices, instead of order microservice directly communicated with the cluster, and they have to get the based on the order name or topic name that will be consumed. And once he will process the data, like they need to check the slot and they need to calculate the payment, and then they have to send back to the cluster. Then once this will be happen, then producer microservice, sorry, order microservice need to generate a order, so that orders will be either a status as completed, incomplete and all. So based on that they have to get up again consumer class we have to retain in order microservice also. They will consume the refresh data which is coming from the other microservice which they have updated in the cluster. So like cluster is a way where which communicated with multiple microservices instead of based on the topic ID, and zookeepers will be monitored tools that will be monitored and all.
Okay. How will it be monitored? Who will be monitoring it?
Who will be monitored?
Hmm.
Mostly internally zookeepers will be monitored this all scenarios, but if you want manually we have a tools like a Kafka tools and other tools is there we can monitor like what are the request is coming from the to the cluster, and how process data is going on, like so based on the topic and all we have a manually we have a multiple tools through that we can do. So Kafka tool is the best way where we can do.
Okay. So usually you said Zookeeper. So without Zookeeper, can we start Kafka?
No, without zookeeper we can't start a Kafka. Zookeeper is mandatory while we run a Kafka.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. In a cluster,
Mhm.
so you didn't tell me the main difference between the Kafka and other messaging services.
Kafka and RabbitMQ, right? See,
Yes.
before was a JMS, so JMS was a Java messaging queue was there, so that was taking more time and that was not reliable. So after that we have RabbitMQ came. RabbitMQ also have a good, but I think some communications and all was based on the processing time was taking much time in that RabbitMQ. Exact difference we need
I
to
don't
check,
think
but
so.
there was some processing and all was like not reflecting properly. So in that cases we used Kafka. Kafka is a most faster, scalable is a like compared to RabbitMQ is good, and offline online handler also will be there. Like suppose if any microservices is down, once microservice will up, then automatically that will be retries and all. So that type of facility I think there, but we need to check some main difference in the Kafka
Okay.
RabbitMQs.
What is the size of the messages it can
Yeah, yeah,
carry?
yeah, yeah. That is also some size of messaging here we can put as a some 1 Mbp like 1 MB data at a time we can send here in this particular chunk. But there was some less data we can send. That was also
Okay. What about message retention period?
message retention.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So once after consumer consumes it,
Mm-hmm.
so will that message be lost because it is already consumed?
Uh, in Kafka cluster, I that will be there once that will be consumed, but will be there because maybe other microservice need required this.
Right. Once it is consumed, can be consumed by other microservices?
No, like suppose depends on the scenario. Like we have a order microservice which will generate order ID. Okay, so we are
Mhm.
processing this detail to the Kafka cluster. So all respective microservices need to take a order ID, and according to the do they will operate the operation. Like slot microservice will update the slot. Payment microservice will do the payment based on this order ID, and promo microservice will get the promo code for the based on the order ID. So if we have a dependency for all the microservice need a this request, then that will be there, else that will be removed.
Okay. Broadcast to all consumers. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for example, in a node or in a node, there may be multiple topics
Mm-hmm.
in a Kafka, correct?
Yeah.
So, what if that node fails? How that request will be handled?
What is Node.js and how request will be
No, no,
handled?
not Node.js.
Okay.
Nodes are servers in a
Okay.
cluster.
Yeah.
If one of the server failed,
Mm-hmm.
how the request which are pointed to the server one will be redirected to other server?
Okay.
Because that is the meaning of cluster.
Mm-hmm.
Else we don't need cluster. We should have added only a single server, right? Why do we need clusters?
Okay. Mm, no, does this one?
I have requested to server one. Somehow it
Yeah.
went down.
Yes.
Okay, how will the cluster will fulfill my request? How will the consumer will consume that message?
I have to check. Not so right now.
Okay, no problem.
Not in this.
Uh, what are the different bean scopes which you handled?
Beans scope in.
Bean scopes in Spring.
Yeah, in Spring we have a bin scope. I think five ways. One is singleton by default,
Mm-hmm.
and then prototype, session, request, and session factory. So singleton will have a single instance will be created, and the same we can use in anywhere if required. Prototype, each request will have a generate a new prototype every time will be generated by the new request, and request as per the client, if they are providing the request, then we will generate, and session will be stored on this client side. Session factory will be there in the session like a server side, where our bin scope will be defined. So by default we'll have a singleton there.
Okay. So where do we need immutable classes?
Where do we
Where do
need
we use
immutable
it?
classes? Yeah,
Yes.
like mostly while we use database connections and all, for that we need to create a parameters is like based on a strings and all. So in that cases we'll have a string as a immutable. So while we declare like a connection name details and all, that will be based on the string. So a string is a immutable class. If you go for the internal implementations, they have created immutability for that. So that cases we use immutable. Others will have a multiple dependent requirement. There we can create a custom immutable also.
How do I know the class is immutable or not?
Okay, so once there will be like a classes will be created as a like a final keyword, and then we'll have a only there is no setter method will be there, only getter method will be there, and so that we can know like this is the immutable classes.
Okay. If I don't have setter, how do you create the immutable class object?
Immutable class object.
Hmm.
Immutable class object based on the class with difference of constructor. This is private, and then after that, based on the class name, like we can create a immutable class. Like what will be the class name, then create a reference, and then by using new keyword we can create an object.
By using class name? First time I'm hearing. By class name, can we create an object?
Like we have a string is a immutable class. Okay, so a string s
Mm-hmm.
equal to new string.
Yeah, we use new string. That will create an object.
Hmm.
Exactly. But for immutable class, in the same way you use new string, sorry, new
No,
immutable class.
no.
Okay. What are the Spring design patterns which you worked?
A spring design pattern. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Mostly I use the design
Yes.
patterns which have like a Spring MVC, Spring DAO, Singleton, and then factory builders, and in Saga, CQRS, API gateways.
Uh, Sorry, man, I lost you. Could you repeat?
Yeah, so in a Spring, mostly I use a Spring MVC, a
Mm-hmm.
Spring DAO, and then Singleton, factory builders. These I used.
Okay. Nothing else? I know you are using many design patterns in your daily life, but
Yeah, yeah, daily life, like we can say, in terms of like a Spring Cloud, that we have, yeah, API gateway, CQRS, and then Saga, that things we used in microservice pattern.
Mhm.
And
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to know that you guys are using it or not. Mm,
yeah,
so, just small program. You just need to explain. Okay,
okay,
you don't need to write anything. So, there are integers in a sequential order.
okay,
I just
integer,
want you to find the missing numbers.
okay,
For example, 1, 2, 3, 4 might be missing. 6, 7,
mhm,
8, 10 might be missing.
yeah,
So, how do you find it?
okay. So one missing numbers, if I want to find, then
Mhm.
okay. uh, so like whatever the numbers has been defined, there are multiple way we can do, but the this is the common which why I'm telling, like the numbers which has been defined, we have to store in this one bucket, like we have to create a initialized loop, and that loop will have a insert the numbers which has been defined by the customer or client. So that is from 1 to 9 or 10 something, and 9 8 are missing. And second, we have a create a others loop that will be like numbers, how many numbers are there. Based on the numbers, we have to iterate one by one and check is uh, is data is present or not of one loop. If yes, then we have to like go for the next one, and next we have to check if data is there or not. Whatever the data will not there, that we have to break and will show the output, like 8 is missing there. That way also we can do, like numbers which will be define all the numbers. Another, we have to create a loop and iterate one by one, and we'll check the numbers compare to next.
Don't you think comparing takes so much of time?
Yeah, that will be taken same so much and time, and complexity also will be there. That is a generic.
Mm-hmm.
And others, uh, others will have a, we can go for a collection, key value, else we can create a function of missing number there.
Okay, it's fine. So one more, Amarjit. So I have an array of repeated characters.
Mm-hmm.
Can you print me the repeatable characters? What are repeated?
Okay, suppose like, yeah, repeatable characters are there in array, then yeah, that also possible. While repeatable characters, we need uh, whatever I'm telling, that is loop based right now. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so array we have defined in one loop, like I equal to 0, I is less than array dot length minus 1, I plus
Mm-hmm.
plus here, and after that we have a new, where we have to check I plus 1, array j equal to I plus 1, where we are comparing from index of 0 to index of 1. And there we have to check if data index of I value is equal to index of j value is there. If yes, then we have to print like repeatable value, what is the index of I value. And then again we will compare of index of I plus j plus 1, and then we'll check if repeatable is there. If yes, then we have to print. That way we can also do.
Mhm. Yeah, sure, Amarjit. I think thank you so much for your time. So I'll let Mayuri know about the feedback.
Okay, sure.
Okay?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.